Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. On this very episode, we are debating when a property has a bit too much fan service, a dab of movie manners with kids in theaters, and a discussion on Tick, Tick, Boom, Psych 3, Wheel of Time, and then spoilery thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife. Let's get on with the show. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today are my fellow just the one, Troy Heinrichs.
Who are you going to call, Aaron? I guess me.
I'm not going to call anyone. I'm going to text because nobody calls on anyone anymore, ever.
That's part of the problem of society.
It truly is.
Sometimes you need to hear voices to hear inflection and surprise and wonder and intrigue and anger.
John Davenport and Amanda Sink are off this week. Both are unavailable, traveling. It's the holiday week here in the States. Troy and I would rather avoid our families, so we are here with you.
It's a fair statement.
Yep. That's just how it works sometimes. So we're going to talk about a couple things, and we'll get there in a minute. But are you doing anything special for the holidays, or is it the normal turkey?
Actually, we're doing a beef tenderloin instead of a turkey because no one likes turkey.
Hey, I got 2 turkeys this year, so I disagree.
You can talk about your family however you want. That's fine. That's for a different conversation.
Got more than 2 turkeys in my family.
No, I don't know. Turkeys just always seem to be like such a hassle to make. And, some people die when you put them in the fryers and then they dry out when you put them in the oven. So we're like, nah, we're just going to do beef tenderloin this year. Everybody enjoys it. It's a great meal. It's juicy. It's tender. It's fun.
Sounds good.
And we'll have the usual fixings on the sides. So
it definitely sounds very good. And I will kind of agree with you in many shapes and forms because I always have to make the turkey. And it's a real pain in the ass, roaster or not, and especially to clean it afterward. It's just like,
yes.
Why are we still doing this? You spend
all day in the kitchen. And what's the point of Thanksgiving is to be with your family, not be with your oven. You can be with your oven any day of the week.
We will disagree there, but I see what you mean. Don't necessarily agree with that part, but I see what you mean. And I also, have you ever forgotten to, in the turkey, everybody listening doesn't care about this, and it's probably after Thanksgiving when you finally listen to it, but whatever. You ever notice in the turkey, they have the thing, the guts or whatever you're supposed to pull out?
Yeah.
It's in that little plastic thing?
Yes.
I have forgotten that more times than I have remembered. True story. Makes for an interesting Thanksgiving.
Yummy.
You might not want to eat my turkey if you ever come over, just so you know. Or check.
Well, I consider you family, so I won't be coming over.
Yep. You're welcome. Come on. You can have the plastic. It's like a special gift if you get to that part of the turkey.
I've been feeling that way my whole life, thanks to the world.
What's even scarier is I've never had the plastic actually melt.
That is scary.
Shouldn't
I wonder what
concern
that plastic is made of.
Yeah, it concerns me a little bit. All right, well, let's get into we're going to start with our topic first. We're actually doing this episode a little different because typically on Thanksgiving, we don't even have a podcast. We do like a compilation episode or something like that, and we just take the whole week off. But Ghostbusters came out. Troy and I are big Ghostbusters fans, so we were pretty excited to talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife after it's been delayed for 14 years. I mean, McKenna Grace, who stars as Phoebe in the movie, is literally like 10 years older than she was when she made it. It's
correct.
Crazy. Go watch her. Go Google her for the premiere. Why is she like 27 now? What happened? That's how long this movie has been in development.
And there was so much that actually came out this weekend too. It wasn't just Ghostbusters. It was like a plethora of stuff.
My God, man. And most of it is available to stream. So there's some good quality stuff streaming. There's some great stuff in the theaters. Whatever you're into, whatever you want to do with your family, if you want to escape your family and go somewhere, you can, and you can go see Ghostbusters and smile. You can stay home if you really want to spend more time with them and watch Wheel of Time or Psych 3. I definitely recommend Psych 3. Anything. There's so much out there right now that people can watch at home or in the theater. I think it's a great time to be a fan. It feels like we're back to normal, doesn't it?
A little bit. I went to a concert on Saturday night, and let me tell you, it was wall-to-wall Sea of Humanity. No masks.
Was that scary or was that fun? Somewhere in the middle?
I exited stage right and went to the upstairs mezzanine where there was a little bit more breathing room.
Now, can I ask you an honest question? Since
Yes.
I mean, why would you lie? That'd be weird. So in this current environment, like we're on the endemic, right? At this point, I would say.
I'd say we're probably close, yeah.
Close. Do you still have this thing? I have this thing where if I go into a gathering where people are actually in close proximity to me, I do get anxiety now, which I never had before. And I've been a germaphobe my whole life. So I've never wanted anyone within my 6 feet. But now I actually have real anxiety, at least for a portion of it, until I get accustomed and used to it. Do you have that?
I think I had it a
mentally?
little bit at the concert on Saturday night because I was walking through because I had to get from one side of the room to the other to get to the staircase and just pushing through there and like people bumping into you and touching you and spilling drinks on you. And I'm like, man, this is not me anymore. Like, no, I am done. Like, get me the hell out of here. And when I got to the stairwell, I had to stop for a minute, catch my breath. And I was like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, maybe a little bit of a panic attack.
Isn't that weird? We've gotten to that point.
I mean, I like my people in doses, like, 10, 20 people at my house, it's fine. Going to a restaurant, sitting down at a table, with a couple people, fine. Even like, visiting some friends at a friend's house or something, fine. But like, yeah, this large, like you think about Astroworld and that event down in Texas and all these people rushing the stage and people that, got injured and killed. And I'm just like, it's just not necessary anymore. Like, why?
You want to do virtual concerts?
I enjoyed many of the virtual concerts over the 18 months.
Did you
of the
really?
pandemic. I did.
You're like, I get to do this, but I don't have to leave my house. I can do this in my pajamas. Yay.
And a lot of them were kind of free. So it was like, this is even better. I don't have to pay for anything.
Yeah, that part was pretty sweet. I got a lot of stuff that I'd never got before, and it was free this time. I liked it.
I had a buddy who did a 3-man show in New York City at the Triad on 72nd Street. And they sold, I think it was like $15 for a Zoom ticket if you couldn't get to New York City. And I thought that was great because like I don't live in New York, but I want to see my friend perform. And so I was able to watch the show right from the comfort of my home and still supported the theater. And I thought that was a really great option because the show was fantastic. It was really, really good.
I went on a mini cruise with former host of the Hollywood Outsider, Brian Williams, and also travel agent. If you're looking for travel, Wanderstruck Travel, look it up on Facebook. And we had like a mini promotional. He had a promotional cruise because he's a travel agent. And he asked me to go with him, and all the safety precautions were taken. Everybody had to be vaccinated, all that jive. And we got to the beach, and there were people still wearing their mask on the beach. There's literally nobody around. I thought that was hysterical.
That's a little weird.
It was funny. But you can't like point at them because, hey, we've all been there. At some point, we've worn them in the weird places or while we were outside walking because we didn't know. At some point, we didn't know, right? So
right, when you didn't know, it made sense.
Sure. But I'm like, you're on a beach. You actually got on the cruise ship. So I don't know what is happening. Are you going to wear it in the water? We were actually waiting to see. Are you going to wear it in the water? But I'll be perfectly honest. I was a little too over the edge to really wait there too long because I couldn't stand up straight that long. You see what I'm saying, right?
Totally.
Okay. All right. Let's go to our from the outside in topic. We're jumping into that. Then we're going to do movie manners. I think you'll enjoy that. And then we'll jump into reviews. So the topic this week has to do with all the fan service. It's been a lot for years. In fact, I was just listening to an old episode of the Hollywood Outsider from 2015, where we kind of, not the same topic, but kind of talked about how much nostalgia is being injected into properties these days. And that was 6 years ago. And it was just like a plethora of stuff. And we're not getting any lighter on it. So HBO Max is bringing back Mel and Danny for Lethal Weapon 5. You'd think they'd be too old for this shit. They're not. They're coming back for something for HBO Max. They're rebooting Under Siege, so they're bringing that property back. Who even knew anybody wanted that property back? But it's coming back. I'm sure Steven Seagal's not coming with it because he's not leaving Russia. Ghostbusters basically echoes the plot of the first movie. Blade Runner and Aliens are both coming back with new TV series. Spider-Man dropped its trailer, and it's bringing back characters from other Spider-Man franchises. Like, there's a lot of fan service going on, and I kind of want to know, what do you think about this? Do you have any feeling on if there's ever too much fan service?
I think this is a hard topic, right? Because
it is.
As a parent of the 80s, as a child of the 80s, now a parent in the 2020s, the thing that we have to understand is that Hollywood's job is to make money. And if I'm going to make money today, what is the number one way I can make money? And that is to say, hey, child of the 80s, remember Transformers, G.I. Joe,
Ninja Turtles.
I'm trying to think of some other ones.
Thundercats.
Or, yeah, He-Man, Master of the Universe. I mean, so many, all those awesome cartoons that we had growing up that you would never have been able to make as a movie because of the special effects required for it or visual effects required for it. And I think now you have the opportunity to do that with the computer generated stuff that we have, even in some practical situations as well. And I think, yeah, like I want to see the live action Transformers done by somebody that's not Michael Bay. You just enjoy that. Like, I like the nostalgia. I like going back and just like, oh man, remember when life was simple and we didn't have phones and we played outside and kicked a can and you didn't come home until the streetlights turned on and all that fun stuff. But at the same time, share that experience with your children so that the children then have the ability to say, oh, that was really cool. And I was like, oh, you thought that was cool? Let me show you this thing from the 70s or 80s. And I think it preserves the history of film in a way. Ghostbusters is a great example. There was so much of the first movie that draws us in as the adults, but the kids can enjoy it and go, that was really cool. And it's like, well, do you want to know the origin story? And they're like, yeah. And then you can watch 1984 Ghostbusters with them. And they're like, this is awesome. Like, I think if done right, it's good. I think when they do it because they're trying to cater to the cancel culture masses, because I'm going to, rip on your property if you don't do the things that I want you to do, and the keyboard warriors, that's when it goes off the rails and becomes a little bit more disastrous versus like a pure play nostalgia fun romp, which Ghostbusters totally was for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely of two minds. What was interesting by listening to that old episode, because, we were in a completely different time 5 or 6 years ago, property wise, like what we got. We were getting so much of rebooting old stuff. There wasn't much that was original that was coming out, right? Now, I don't think people can make that argument. I'm sure some people are going to try and make that argument, like everything is just regurgitated from the past and da-da-da. But really, with TV the way it is, with streaming the way it is, there is so much original stuff right now that I don't think we have an overabundance of regurgitated properties and fan service like we used to. I do think it was worse 5 or 6 years ago, but mostly because now we have so many extra things. We've got so many additional properties and additional TV shows and additional video on demand movies and things like that, streaming movies. There is so much content right now that the few things that really kind of break through and get people talking are those regurgitated things, those things that are paying fan service. Scream is coming back in January. That's more fan service. It's bringing back a series from the 90s that was very popular that hasn't been popular since, but they figure there's an appetite now. It'll break through to those people that haven't gotten something that they really wanted in the last few years. And the name breaks through.
Especially with that slasher genre, right? It's been a lot of the same kind of horror, paranormal. Like there hasn't been a good just, creeper in the closet.
Right. Yeah, there hasn't. I mean, Fear Street came close, I guess, but not close enough. More supernatural than it was slasher. And that makes a difference. Now, I do think sometimes we do have too much fan service, which is funny, because I think Endgame is a movie that the entire film is fan service. That entire movie is fan service. It's a culmination of what does everybody want in this final movie. And they got all those moments. They got Cap holding the hammer. They got, Avengers Assemble. They got the female Avengers coming together for their moment, which of course some people complained about, but women love that moment. They wanted to see the characters they identified with as having their hero moment. So, I mean, it played to fans for those moments. And I think that is important. Then you got Spider-Man No Way Home, where it's bringing back so many characters from the past franchises that I wonder if that's too much fan service. Because I watched the trailer and so many people are just raving about it. They're so excited to see all these different characters, probably just because if it was a Marvel movie. If it wasn't an MCU movie, I bet you people wouldn't be half as excited as they say they are now. But whatever.
I saw that trailer this weekend for the first time.
Yeah, and I'm like, before Ghostbusters, right?
I was excited for it.
See? But that really was total fan service, was it not? Because if you really think about it, nothing in that trailer other than seeing all these different characters that you've seen in previous franchises pop up. There's really nothing in there that I think is a compelling story. I think it looks just like, the whole kitchen sink has been thrown at the screen. They're just throwing everything at it. And I don't think it looks like a cohesive movie yet. But people are just going nuts over it because, I'm going to see Jamie Foxx and I'm going to see this person. Maybe I'll see Toby and maybe I'll see, they're all talking about all the people they might see or will see. because of that trailer. You know what I'm saying?
I totally believe it. And I mean, like when you saw the Green Goblin, you saw Dr. Octavius come up. I was like, it kind of felt like home in a way.
See? Yeah. But I don't know is that always good though? Is that always good to just, okay, well, we're just going to throw this stuff at you. You got this. And maybe sacrificing for the story, because the story about this doesn't look interesting to me at all. And I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. It just looks like, one more movie where Spider-Man is not going to be the focus. It's going to be Doctor Strange, the multiverse, and the various characters. I mean, I'm hoping that they're going to put it together in a nice little package. But the previous two films didn't do
knowing that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse Madness is coming, like, obviously this is a setup for that. But it felt like I was watching a trailer for Multiverse of Madness versus a trailer for Spider-Man, to be honest.
That's what I thought, too. It very much felt more multiverse movie than Spider-Man movie, to me.
Yeah, almost Spider-Verse, like Into the Spider-Verse type of movie.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic, by the way. Like, do more of that. That was good stuff.
Well, I think hopefully they're going to do a Miles Morales live-action movie at some point. They've got to.
That would be cool.
That would be great fan service. That's what fans want. The
game was awesome. Just do the video game as a movie.
Boom. There's your story. You don't even have to write anything. It's already there.
Right.
I like it. All right, so tell me about a property that you feel nailed fan service. Without not Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's too soon. Pick something else.
Well, I think there was... It's like a good and bad, right? So I think that Star Wars coming back with the 7th movie, right?
The Last Jedi?
Force Awakens.
Oh, Force Awakens. Okay.
I think that one brought back the things that they needed to bring back to get people re-energized about it, right? Because there's so many Star Wars fans over the last, now is it 40 years or more? And to see your things, right? To see R2-D2, to see C-3PO, to see Han and Chewie, to get the lines that Han and Chewie say to each other, to see the Falcon. I mean, all of that stuff, none of that needed to be in the movie. You could have done the same movie and just thrown all of that away. But then to see the trench run, to know that it's like a giant Death Killer planet like this, like the Death Star was, it gives you a familiarity to say, oh yeah, this is the Star Wars universe, so that you can do the things you need to do, which is introduce the new characters and introduce the new story and set up for the long-term franchise. So I think in that respect, like Star Wars, Force Awakens really did a good job to pull in the nostalgia factor while telling new story in the sense of like, who is Rey? Who is Finn? What are their journeys? And that's what I'm going to get in the second movie. And I think that was pretty well done in my opinion. Like, even though it was like the same exact, person on desert planet goes and joins up with the resistance and fights the big bad thing, and then all of a sudden blows it up in a spectacular fashion. Yeah, I mean, that's the crux of, A New Hope. But isn't it the same thing? Isn't it we need a new hope because the First Order is now running the world?
Yeah.
So I don't fault JJ for doing it that way. I thought it was great. Thoroughly enjoyable the whole way through.
Thought that was an absolute blast. And I think most people, some people will say, well, the movie was just a rip. It's amazing to me what people will say. That's a ripoff of the original movie, but then they'll watch another thing. It does the exact same thing, and they won't say that about that property. Right. And I'll never understand.
It's an homage.
Yeah, homage. So that I think is a prime example of great fan service, because I agree with you. It felt like just going back to my childhood. But also you could see the kids in the audience and they were having a great time, and they didn't know, these properties as well as we did as adults. So we got to enjoy them with our kids or, with our family or friends or whatever. And, it felt like home, but also people that weren't familiar with it, they got a fun, just zipping around the galaxy adventure. So that was a great one. I already mentioned Endgame. I think that's probably the best fan service movie I can think of, but I'll throw in Serenity, because Serenity is a movie that was basically done because fans wouldn't give up on Firefly. And when you finally got the movie, it is fan service, but it's fan service done well, because it also gives you things that you didn't want necessarily, but work great in the concept of the movie. Like, it gave it a bigger palette, a bigger canvas. Characters die that were fan favorites that we absolutely loved, and they die in the movie. And that was very unexpected, which made for a more engaging movie. And it just made, it was obviously a bigger scale and all that jive. So to me, that's like a prime example of that's how you do fan service. Give people a bit of what they want. And Force Awakens did that too with Han. His death wasn't exactly beloved because, it hurts people to lose a character they love. And Firefly, when you lost Wash, or what book, those are impactful deaths in a series you love, but it gives you that thing you love, but also kind of takes it away at the same time. And I love that. I feel like that's how you do fan service. Give me what I want, but also give me something I didn't know I wanted. Shake it up.
And I think fan service extends too to extending properties. So think like Dexter's coming back, right? Or is back. People like the character, so let's reboot the show. That's totally fine if you can figure out a creative way to do it. If the character's still alive at the end of the series, like you could start up a whole new chapter, and it's totally okay. Blacklist is technically not off the air, but they've basically rebooted the show with season 9, so they're doing a fan service. The people like the characters. Let's tell a new story, and that's perfectly fine. Psych 3 just came out this weekend. The Psych movies never needed to happen, but because people love the characters and the people didn't want to do the grinding, haul of television, they can still do a movie every 2 or 3 years, and people will come back for it because they love the characters.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great fan service option because it just allows you to have the thing that it's the, Saturday morning bowl of cereal under a blanket, cup of hot cocoa. It just feels super comfortable, and sometimes comfortable is okay.
I love that. I love that example because now I want a blanket and a bowl of cereal. I hope you don't eat the bowl of cereal under the blanket because I feel like you'd spill it.
I actually put the hot cocoa with milk, not water, in the bowl of cereal and eat it that way.
Is it better with milk than water?
The hot cocoa is definitely better with milk than water.
I don't know if I've ever had hot cocoa.
Cereal is definitely better with milk than water. Well, although I know that we've been the poor college people that have done the water thing.
Everybody that's ever been poor has done water. I don't think I've ever done hot cocoa with milk. True story. I don't think I have.
You're missing out.
I gotta try it. I might try it over.
It's thicker. It's creamier. It's awesome.
I'll give it a whirl.
Whole milk, especially. Now,
how about when? Give me an example of when too much fan service was felt, and I got a feeling it's going to be connected.
Yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah,
yeah. Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, I liked the movie. I was entertained, but there was just too much pandering and catering to the loudest voices in the room that it was almost annoying. Like, I didn't need a whole backstory about how there was a secret room on the Death Star. Like, the fact that there is a blade that goes back to the Death Star that was carved specifically to line up with where it crashed. I mean, I'm just like no. I mean, all you needed was like an Ewok to show up or something, and it would have been just bad.
So you feel like that was just too much? The whole Rise of the Skywalker was just too much?
It was just too much. Like, I thought I personally, minus the longest space chase scene where they can't catch anybody ever.
That's Last Jedi.
I think
that's Last Jedi.
Yeah, The Last Jedi I thought was a really, really great Star Wars movie. I thought it got into the lore. It got into the, how Luke, became what he was. And then the way Luke does the thing at the end. I'm just like, oh my, like, this is amazing. Like, I bawled, like 6 of us, 40-year-old people are just literally puddles of goo on the floor at the end of Last Jedi. And I think that just is a testament to like how connected you are to those characters. And then you just go like shit on them at the last movie because people just complained about it. And it was like, no, please stop.
Yeah, that was tough because I did not enjoy the movie, but it is tough to not realize that movie is really poorly plotted. And they're just doing everything they can because they think they lost so many people with The Last Jedi. They're doing everything they can to try to win them back. They're trying to do The Force Awakens, but it's just too soon. It's too close to Force Awakens. And it's also too much of a stretch. I'm like, what? And the Emperor's cloned and shit? What? This is stupid. It was just idiotic throughout. The entire plot of it was idiotic.
Princess Leia's still alive, briefly.
I mean,
after she threw for the cold dead of space.
That was weird. I'm like, I mean, I get the Force is strong with them and whatnot, but I didn't know they could fly through space. Yeah.
Science is still science.
It's a little weird. I mean, there are right ways to do some fan service. Logan is a prime example of a right way to do fan service. Give the character their due, treat them with respect, do something different, do something edgy, have a great time, And then there's the wrong way, like Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to throw another Star Wars one in there because I think Star Wars has done too much of this. I think Solo is, and some people are like, hey, it's a good movie. I disagree. It's bad.
It's a great movie.
Eh.
You shut up. That's a fun movie. That's a fun movie.
Not bad. It's okay. I will say it's okay. But there is so much of that movie that is just token fan service. That is, even his stupid name, how he got his name. I'm by myself. Okay, we'll call you Solo. What? Who wrote this? Because they were just trying to do some kind of fan service and get these little nods, and nobody needed that. Just call him Han Solo. That's all you needed to do. Everybody would have been fine. But no, we got to go. We're making it so obvious that this movie is just literal fan service.
Yeah, you got the card game. You got the Kessel Run. You got, there was another big one in there that I'm trying, that like just totally blanked on. Darth Maul coming back at the end.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. With robotic legs, which means it's tied into the time period, which was actually really cool. But
another,
like, why does Darth Maul need to be here unless you're doing a Darth Maul movie?
True. Another good example of fan service is Jurassic World. I really feel like, that's one where it kind of reinvented it, but it really is very similar to the first movie. But
for sure.
But it gives you all ticks all those little boxes and gets everybody, re-engaged, reinvested in a franchise that had kind of died, Now, I wonder, is this too much fan service? This is just an honest question before we wrap up here on the topic. The Mandalorian, I think it's been long enough now we can mention it. At The Mandalorian, at the end of the second season, you get the entire ending of the season is predicated on the fact that Luke Skywalker comes back and saves Mando, right? And saves Baby Yoda.
Well, saves all of them and takes Grogu away.
Yeah. So I'm still going to call him Baby Yoda forever. What do you think about that? Do you think that's too much fan service, or was that it hit a sweet spot that people didn't get from the movies that they really wanted? Because I'm of two minds. I think people finally got what they wanted. I think they wanted that moment in the movies and they never got it. Instead they got the whole monk version where he's just sitting there and it's all a hologram and whatnot. And that wasn't nearly as exciting, even though it was a cool moment. You wanted Luke in the fight. You wanted that moment. So I like that it's there, but on the same token, you have a series that was standing on its own, and now you basically make it reliant on a Skywalker, yet again, more fan service to make that series end, or that season end.
But they set it up in the way that they had to get Grogu to a Jedi. That was the whole premise of the entire show. And at that time of when it's taking place in the timeline, there is only, as far as people know, one Jedi left available, and that is Luke, because Leia's still not trained up at that point. You didn't know that Ahsoka was still hanging out there somewhere. And because you had Ahsoka earlier in the season, Ahsoka isn't the one that's supposed to take him. So that means there's only one other option left. So from a story perspective, it works because that's the way the universe is currently laid out in that moment. Do I need to see it actually happen? Give or take. It was freaking cool as hell. Even though it was all completely, special affected and visual affected and CGI'd and the whole thing. Like, they just mashed it all up to make that happen. And I thought it was cool. I don't need to see, and this is the problem, because now it's like, is Grogu coming back to the show? We don't know. Is there like a time jump or something? Because I don't need to see Luke in the show going forward. But the show is the relationship between Grogu and Mando.
True.
And if you don't have that going forward, what's that going to be like?
Should be interesting. Well, I've got one more question, but I'm going to save it until I'm going to read 2 listener comments and then we'll move on. Rich Ladu, he said, it's a great question. We asked listeners, what do you think is when is it too much fan service? And he said, it's a great question. Hollywood isn't all that interested in having writers create original content when they can exploit low risk legacy properties with built-in audiences. I mean, he's not wrong there.
No, I don't think he is.
But again, you spoke to it at the beginning. I get it because they're trying to find a way to break through to audiences so that they'll check out their property. And a lot of time, name recognition is the only thing that's going to get them. So much content.
Like Ghostbusters, for example, I think it has three things that it needs to do. 1, cater to the people that are going to pay the money to come see the show. 2, set up the long-term franchisable ability of the property to do something new going forward. And 3, allow it to be good enough that kids of the people that are paying for the movie tickets are interested enough to go back and watch the original properties. So that way you get locked in brand awareness, if you will, for lack of a better term. I think those are the 3 things that Hollywood is trying to do today, is to how do we keep cinema alive from the past while making new cinema for the future around a property that people already love.
No, and that actually runs in line with what my question was going to be later on, but I'll just ask it now since you brought up Ghostbusters. Why do you think, and I think it's a legitimate question, why do you think Ghostbusters Afterlife was so well received before it even released? And then after it released, obviously, but even before it was released, people were just like raving about the trailer versus the 2016 Ghostbusters, the Answer the Call with Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig, where that was just completely trashed across the board. Now, before it was ever released, I'm not talking about once they saw it. I'm saying before it was even released. Why do you think that difference is there? Is it solely because, I mean, I don't know the answer to this. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but why do you think the answer is?
I think, number one, the Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy option before anybody ever saw it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing you're thinking about is like, oh my gosh, it's Saturday Night Live Bridesmaids. Like, no, just no. Like,
but
we don't need that.
To be fair, I mean, I'm serious, like, just devil's advocate, to be fair, the original Ghostbusters had Saturday Night Alive, they were alive at the time, Saturday Night Live.
They were staying alive, too.
Yeah, alum in the original. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, both Saturday Night Live alum. Just saying.
It's fair, but I think people are like thinking Bridesmaids. Like they're thinking it's like
raunchy.
Bridesmaids is a different kind of comedy. It's not Ghostbusters, right?
Okay.
And where you get the trailer, the very first trailer for Ghostbusters Afterlife, and you're just like, oh, like this is the continuation story. This is in universe. This is like, ooh, they're gonna find traps. They're gonna find the ectomobile. It felt like it was part of the original, where the female version felt like it was a rebooted version of what was a good franchise, but it wasn't part of the story. And I think when you connect with the story, that's where it totally takes off. Just like Force Awakens connected with the story. It was a continuation of the universe versus something completely like parallel dimension, if you will.
Like a complete reboot.
Right, correct.
So you...
Like a great example, Wonder Years. Right? Wonder Years from our childhood growing up versus the Wonder Years that's now. It's got the same name. It's got the same kind of structure of the show, but it's a totally different show. It is not the same show.
Same vibe. Same kind of vibe, but I see what you're saying. I mean, it's a completely different dynamic. Right.
And not that one's good or bad in any way, but when you have something that's like, oh yeah, like whatever happened to the Ghostbusters after New York? Like, that's a great question to start a story from. And this answers that question. Like, what happened to the Ghostbusters? And that I'm in for.
But you will agree that a lot of the disdain for the 2016 one was just because it was women and not men. Do you agree with that, or you don't agree with that?
Well, that's what the internet said. I mean,
I saw it. I saw some of that. But I also, on the same token, and I'm trying to be like completely fair, I did see a lot of that. I did see a lot of people just didn't like that. It was lady Ghostbusters. They were just not for it. But in the same token, I haven't seen anybody rejecting Phoebe on the Ghostbusters Afterlife, and she's obviously a female Ghostbuster. So maybe there was some of we don't want bridesmaids comedy. We don't want that kind of comedy. We want, I don't know what the hell people just think they want. I mean, we obviously are a society that needs to stop judging things before we see them, number one, but that's just how we are.
Sure.
So maybe there's some of that, but I definitely think some of it was just because they were women. I mean, I saw too much of it for it not to be the case. But
I think that's hard with Phoebe's character just because of the fact that she's more of a child. So anybody's going to root for a kid, right? Especially a kid who's rejected by society versus, strong, confident women who can do anything and take over New York. I think it's not fair to compare the women angle to Phoebe's character in this movie, but
okay.
I think it's true. I think it's truly more about continuation of story. And that's why people didn't like the Bridesmaids version, for lack of a better term.
I just rewatched it. I still think that movie is
a
still
fun movie.
It's still fun.
It's fun. It's great. It's the Ghostbusters multiverse of madness.
Yeah, very much so. I like that's a good example. Last comment. Josh Steinman says, I feel like pandering is really lazy and is used for filler. In the right hands, fan service can be used as a great payoff for fans that have stuck around. It's a very fine line, though. I think that's well stated.
Yeah.
Well stated. All right, you ready to move on from fan service?
Sure.
Okay, well, first I want to mention that the unnerving horror thriller A House on the Bayou is now available on digital and on demand. A family vacation in rural Louisiana takes a sinister turn, uh-oh, when neighbors show up for dinner uninvited. Everybody hates when that happens. It's the holidays, we all know. And that tests the family's fragile bond and forcing dark secrets to come to light. You can buy or rent A House on the Bayou and watch it today, right now, right after this podcast. It's unrated and it's from Paramount Pictures. So be sure to check out A House on the Bayou. And if you're interested, we have 5 digital codes that we are giving away of this film. You can email us, contests@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. It's contests@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Be sure you use the subject line, House on the Bayou. Make sure you spell it right. I'm going to give you points for spelling it right. And then you'll be entered into a contest to win one of those 5 codes. All right. Well, we're going to move on to a topic that I think is near and dear to everybody's heart right now, and that's movie manners. We've had this before. We talked about phones in theaters. Well, this time it's something a little bit more serious. Kids in theaters, a place where we should all be able to enjoy our children and enjoy other people's children in movie theaters and their excitement, their joy, they're having fun. But sometimes, Mom and Dad, you need to handle your kids. So we've all been there, right? Lights go down. Troy, you've been there. You've got kids. I've got kids. We've been there.
I was there on Saturday.
So you're going to know exactly what I'm going to talk about. So the lights go down. Movie's finally starting. Maybe you're halfway through, or it's at the very insanely impactful end. You're just involved. You're engaged in the movie. And then it happens. A kid screams or cries or, dear God, there was a tantrum. Now, I'm not talking about a kid having a wonderful time at the movies, fist pumping over some ghost busting or whatever Cap or Iron Man just did. I'm talking obviously have a personal problem or an attitude that needs to be addressed pronto. And then it continues. Oh, yeah. There's kids that cry or throw tantrums and goes on for longer than what, Troy? 5 seconds? 15 seconds? I don't know what the time limit should be. What do you think? 20?
You know, like the minute you're like, grab that kid and get it out of it.
Exactly. After that predetermined time limit, whatever it is, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever, it's on you. Mom, dad, grandparents, cousins, uncles, whatever the hell you are. You're the ones everyone is judging for your poor parenting technique. Any parent worth their salt takes that kid, exits the theater to address whatever's going on. Maybe put the fear of Zool into that kid, whatever it takes. If you just sit there and let it happen, effectively ruining everyone else's experience, yeah, the kid's not the assholes in the theater. You are. You are. For not getting your kid to quiet down. It's your job. Your responsibility. Stop ruining our theater experience. What say you, Troy?
That was not my theater experience on Saturday, because my theater experience was totally different. I sat, and in my theater, it's very tiered, right? So each row is like, to go up to the next row is probably 6 to 8 feet to get up to the next row, and then the next row, and the next row. Very steep baseball stadium type kind of feel to it. And the row above me was a lot of, we'll call it 10 to 14 range, in a large group.
Ooh.
These kids, these tweens, like proceeded to like chat with each other during the course of the movie. One of the kids behind me was like there's like a wall, right? So the chair is against the wall, and then there's the wall, and he's like tapping his feet on the wall right behind my head the entire movie. I was like, I'm going to turn around and take your shoes off. Because at least you're tapping with your socks, it would be quieter. And then twice during the movie did I not get like viciously attacked by a giant bug, because I like have this thing where like if I don't mind bugs, but if something flies at me, it's like, and I don't know what it is, I'm like, oh my God, what is it? Get it off me. Like I got attacked by 2 bugs, which I find at the end of the movie in my chair are 2 wrappers from the candy that they were eating. So it's like, not only do I have like,
I was wondering what the connection was. I'm like, we're talking about kids in theaters, man. And then I get it. I'm with you.
I'm just like sitting there going like, so number one, not only did I get attacked in the movie theater by a giant bug candy wrapper, but now I have COVID because you ate that candy. like what is going on with children today that they have no concept of just sit still
and respect.
And I know that you
respect.
have ADHD and neurodivergent and things of that nature, but I think they still have, we talked a lot about the millennials and the parenting of the millennials and the helicopter parents. And we're hopefully moving out of that phase into something a little bit more, I hate to use the word traditional, but some kind of traditional parenting, or at least awareness parenting, we'll call it, because I know I don't parent like my mom and dad did. I learned from my parents, mistakes in their parenting. I'm trying to do things differently, right? But still have some of those firm, like you show respect, you understand what's appropriate, what's not appropriate in certain points in time.
Yeah, use cages when necessary. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that there's a level of, like, they think that when they hit 12, they're autonomous, and they're not. Like, that's why they don't get a license until they're 16. And even at 16, they don't deserve to be driving, many of them. So I think that that's something that is on, like you said, it's on the parents. Like, if your kid's not able to handle themselves in public normally, like, do not let them go to the theater by themselves, because especially with a group of 20 friends, because it's just going to disrupt everybody else's experience. And literally, like you said, like right at the end of the movie, at the most impactful part, where I'm literally like, woo! Like, and then like you hear this tapping in the background. I'm like, oh my God, shut up.
Rapping. Tapping on my chamber door.
Yes.
I remember when my kids were at the age you're talking about, I was very, very freaking clear when they went to the movies by themselves. These are movie manners. These are the things that you should not do, and these are the things that are okay to do when you're in a movie, because there are other people that you're affecting. Like, it is not just your life. It's not okay to have your phone on. It's not okay to be sitting there yapping during a movie, talking to your friends. Don't go to a movie then. Go to something else. Go shopping, go to an arcade. They still have them, right? In some towns.
Yep.
Go do something else. But don't go to a movie. If you go to a movie, shut the frack up, watch the movie, maybe whisper very, very quietly when something cool happens, but only when something cool happens that's reflected on the screen. So at least people know you're talking about the movie that's actually happening. Then leave. Then you leave. It's really just common sense. And I know so many people whose kids are very much like that because they've been, raised right. And I know some people whose kids are just nightmares to have in a movie. I've gone to movies with other people and their kids, and they'll tell me how well behaved their kids are. And I'm telling you, they are wrong. They really are really, really wrong. And you just want to tell them, like, everything you're doing is wrong. Tell your kid no. It's cool. It's cool. The word no is an important thing.
No is power.
No is power. Ah, that's funny. You got rappers thrown at your head.
Yeah, literally. I was like, what the fuck was that? What the frick was that?
I like how you're not concerned about the fact that maybe bugs are flying at your head during a movie. You're just willing to tolerate that part.
It was a special 4D edition of Ghostbusters Afterlife. Slimer just got me.
That's funny. All right, we're going to our reviews, but you can share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group, The Hollywood Outsider. It's a private group. You do have to look for it. We're also on Twitter @BuyPopcorn, and our site is TheHollywoodOutsider.com, TheHollywoodOutsider.com. Please rate and subscribe us on your preferred podcast app. We always do appreciate that. You can find John's artwork on Insta and Twitter @RJohnDraws, Amanda and Veronica's Marshmallows and Smirk, and @Sink Into This, Troy @TroyHeinritz and on the Blacklist Exposed, and me, I'm Presenting Hitchcock, and @Aaron Smirks on Twitter. Now, reviews. We've got a few, that we're going to gloss by, and then we're going to dive into Ghostbusters Afterlife for sure. But I do want to mention The Wheel of Time. It's about Moraine. It's played by Rosamund Pike. She's a member of a magical organization that takes 5 people on a journey, believing that one of them might be the reincarnation of the dragon, a powerful individual prophesized to save the world or destroy it. Now, several episodes are on Amazon Prime. They're releasing weekly. A lot of people are touting it as the next Game of Thrones. I believe it's based on a series of books by Robert Jordan. I think that's correct.
The series of books is actually listed as being the number 2 selling high fantasy fiction series behind Lord of the Rings.
Wowza. So it's popular.
It's popular.
It's popular. I caught this. Did you get a chance to catch it?
I did not watch it yet. It's on my list for this week while I'm on my bike.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, it takes a little bit to get going, especially in that first episode. There's just, they're taking time to world build, very much like Game of Thrones did in the early goings. You're learning who the characters are. I'm still kind of fuzzy on a couple of the characters, just their names, because they're just new to me. It's new. It's a new name to me, so it's just kind of getting used to the names. It's not like Jon Stark or something like that. And I think the world building is working. By the 3rd episode, for sure, I'm fully invested in the show. There's a ton of money on the screen. Like, Amazon Prime is obviously throwing a lot of money at this series, trying to make it the next Game of Thrones. Rosamund Pike is always fantastic. And the world building, it's very Harry Potter meets Lord of the Rings, meets Game of Thrones, just without foul language and sex everywhere. I mean, there's some sex, but it's not Game of Thrones sex, you know? So right. Far that portion has been rather mild, and I'm invested. I'm very invested in the Wheel of Time.
Would you say it's more Lord of the Rings high fantasy or more Game of Thrones high fantasy?
I think it's probably more Lord of the Rings. There's definitely a lot more magic involved from the early goings, where Lord of the Rings really didn't have magic involved till the end of season 1. I mean, it took a while to find a whole lot of magic. It was mostly a pretty straightforward sword and sandal epic for a while, where this is like magic right out of the gate. You've got orc-like beasts at one point early on. So, I mean, and the costume design on those are fantastic, like a mix between an orc and a werewolf, and I think it looks awesome. So, yeah, I would say more Lord of the Rings.
All right.
But if you're looking for some new series to get invested in that's like a high fantasy, there's been a lot of people that have tried to be Game of Thrones that have just been, wah, wah, wah. I mean, the closest I think we've got is The Witcher. And I love The Witcher. I think that's a great series, and it's something that's different and unique from Game of Thrones. This feels more in line with the same kind of deep storytelling fantasy vibe as Game of Thrones, just without all the naughtiness. Still gory as hell, though. It's very gory.
Yeah. I'm just glad we're in an era where we're finally not trying to make the new Lost. Now we're trying to just make the new Game of Thrones.
That's true. You're so happy. You're like, yay, stop trying to reboot my show, which you know they're going to reboot soon, right?
At some point.
Talking about fan service, that's coming back in some way.
I can't wait. The Hurley Bird is going to return.
He'll probably still be in it, for sure. He'll be the guy guarding them through the path or something. So definitely check out Wheel of Time. Too early to give it a score because, you know, it's all the episodes aren't out yet, but it's going down a path that I'm enjoying. And I got to tell you, Troy, man, I'm so happy to have something weekly that's not just a binge-a-thon. Mm-hmm. You know, Cowboy Bebop came out. I watched the first episode, very Firefly-esque, but it's like, I think it's 10 episodes, and I just didn't feel like watching 10 episodes anytime soon. So I'm like, I'm going to take my time with it.
Which is weird because some things I'm actually like waiting for it to finish. Like the morning show is getting close to the end of its run. Mm-hmm. Foundation just ended its season finale for season 1. So now that those are like in the can, I'm actually going to go do the binge for those particular episodes. But I do like the also episodic nature, like when Only Murders in the Building was on. And every week you had the chance to like talk to your friends and say like, ooh, what do you think's going on? What do you think it is? Like that, the water cooler aspect, even if virtual, like really helps a property get sticky. And I think that's something that we lose in the binge mentality concepts.
Oh man, because you'll only talk about it for the weekend if it's binged, right?
Right.
Maybe a week,
right?
And then you're done. There's always exceptions, Stranger Things, Witcher, there's a few exceptions, but usually, yeah, it's nice to have that. And it's nice to go, you know what? I can't wait to see what happens next week. I can find out right now. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking the whole binge concept because I love that too. It's just nice to have something where I can talk to friends about it and kind of theorize and just make up fan fiction in my mind of where it's going. I miss that. So I'm glad we're getting a little bit of that. Now, Tick, Tick, Boom. This film that you saw follows John, played by Andrew Garfield, who's a young theater composer who's waiting tables in a New York diner in 1990 while writing what he hopes will be the next great American musical. I believe it's Rent, right?
No, he's not writing Rent. He's actually in this movie before Jonathan Larson wrote Rent. It's those that don't know, Jonathan Larson is the writer of Rent, the big Broadway smash.
Right.
The movie, not so much. Jonathan Larson is trying to write a musical called Superbia, which is like a giant rock anthem in a completely made up world. And he's been working on this thing for 8 years of his life, coming up to his 30th birthday. And the movie is actually a second thing that he did, which was a one-man rock anthem show called Tick, Tick, Boom. Which never really actually got completed. And then after Jonathan Larson obviously passed away from an aortic aneurysm, literally the morning of Rent's opening off Broadway for its premiere. So, I mean, how sad, like that Jonathan Larson died the day his masterpiece was finally going to get seen.
Oh, wow.
And this just goes into how Lin-Manuel Miranda specifically found the Tick, Tick, Boom show, actually performed in Tick, Tick, Boom after Jonathan Larson died. And
he's the director,
Netflix,
should be noted. He is
he's the director.
This. Yep.
Yeah, Netflix came to Lin-Manuel Miranda specifically and asked him, like, would you do Tick, Tick, Boom for Netflix? And so Tick, Tick, Boom specifically is the one-man rock stage show that's now a 3-person rock stage show that tells the story about Superbia and how Superbia almost came to be. And it's fun, it's witty. Andrew Garfield is just a gem. Like the people were talking about how when they were with him on set, like they had no idea he could be this prolific of a singer and hold the notes that he's holding and hit the things that he's hitting. And when you see his presentation in 3090 in the opening number, I mean, just like, wow, you're like, this is Broadway on my television, and it's amazing. And it also has Vanessa Hudgens in there.
Alexandra Shipp plays his girlfriend, Susan. I love her. She's been in a lot of things.
And she's got a number that's just absolutely like, you just fall in love with her, and it's so fantastic.
Shipp or Hudgens? Which one?
Shipp.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's funny. In the original score, it's written for Hudgens' character, but Lin-Manuel Miranda made a decision that he was actually going to change it, and actually it becomes a duet, which I thought was just a brilliant stroke. Like, to watch the two of them go back and forth in the number, it's like, oh my, like I just want to be with both of these women. They're just angelic voices, and I just want to sit here forever. It was just, but it's really, really, it's heartfelt, and you can see through the process of how Superbia was being made. It's really a story about Jonathan Larson and Jonathan Larson's friends. And I won't give it away, but I mean, obviously a lot of people know what Rent is about. So if you know what Rent is about, you can obviously tell what he's going through with his friends. And when you see that play out in real life, it tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. And it's just fascinating to watch his process and how he goes through this whole thing. And Bradley Whitford is in it. He plays a real great Broadway person. And it's just, everything about it was amazing. And I didn't get to see it in one sitting. I actually watched the first hour on my flight out yesterday, and I watched the second hour on the flight home yesterday. I watched it again already. It's that good.
Did you really?
Yeah, the movie, the songs are so good. The characters are really good. It's just so heartwarming. It felt a little bit like, not that Bo Burnham Inside, which is also on Netflix. It felt like I was watching that, where it was like I'm watching a person go through an experience where, even though Bo Burnham Inside is more of a one-man comedy show, stand-up, did this while he was during the pandemic, it was purpose-built. I feel like Tick, Tick, Boom is in that same manner, where Jonathan Larson built this one-man show, turned into 3-person show, that you're just getting an insight into his psyche and into how he operated and how he wrote and how he saw music and saw things. And it just connects you and makes you understand Jonathan Larson a little bit more, where I think you'd appreciate Rent a lot more now after seeing this, if you didn't already.
Would you say they built this city on rock and roll?
No.
Sorry. No. I really shouldn't have waited that long for that lame of a joke, but I did anyway. Everything you're telling about this, like I wanted to see it. I wasn't excited to see it. It was on my I'll watch it eventually list. I think I'm gonna add this to the holiday viewing.
Yeah,
I think it's a good family watch.
You go into something like you said, like Hamilton the musical, but you're watching it on TV versus in the Broadway theater.
Sure,
like it doesn't translate because you're watching the actual stage show. I mean, it's still the songs and it's still the story and it's awesome. Like, this was designed and adapted so well for the screen and how it flows that it feels like a movie and not like a Broadway musical performance or a stage show performance, even though there are pieces during the course of the production where you're actually seeing the stage performance of Tick, Tick, Boom done by Andrew Garfield and Vanessa Hudgens and the rest of the band. So I think it does a really good job of blending the real life movie part of it with the stage performance part of it as kind of the narration factor. And I think because of that, everything about it just works. And it was so good. So good.
I think Andrew Garfield is one of our best actors, honestly, working today. I think he's fantastic.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's Oscar buzz for him for this.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So $10 full price for admission. What do you give Tick, Tick, Boom?
I really enjoyed it, so I'm going to go with an 8.
Excellent. Okay, well, next up, before we get to Ghostbusters Afterlife, Psych 3, This Is Gus.
Now, in Psych 3, like, no one ever expected there to be one, let alone two, let alone three movies.
Oh, man. Yeah.
What is it about these movies that makes you keep coming back for it? Is it the characters? Is it the story? Like, what is it about Psych that says we absolutely need these movies in our lives?
And I don't want to say it's on Peacock. So if you're a Comcast customer, I should point out, if you're a Comcast customer, you already have Peacock and probably don't even know it. So you can actually watch this from your home if you're already a Comcast subscriber. Otherwise, it's worth the trial or $5 or whatever. Watch all three movies. What is it about Psych? It's a TV show that, I started watching it because of the mysteries, right? I like murder mysteries. I thought it'd be fun. And it was kind of a comedy. It was on after Monk, that whole thing. But what developed was this friendship between the two lead characters, Sean and Gus. And they are these two guys that just, one will never grow up. One is a grown up, but likes to regress when he's with his best friend, Sean. And they are like the best friends I think everybody wants in their life, even though they're ridiculous and they're immature and they're childish and they probably need a spanking every now and again. They just ooze joy and friendship. And you never doubt that they love each other, even when they do horrible things to each other or punch each other or whatever they do. And Sean does a lot of horrible things to Gus. It's this friendship component that is sorely missing from everything else on television. Literally, I don't know a single show that has captured friendship to me as well as Psych has. So when the movies came back, I mean, I was just excited that I got my favorite show. It's become my favorite show of all time because I rewatch it so much. There's no way it can't be at this point, right? When the first movie came out, I think I was just excited to have Psych back in some fashion. And they kind of, that one was more tailored to, we've got a mystery, we're still doing the Psych thing, we're still tying it into the show, but also the characters just doing goofy stuff. The second one was very much a love letter to Timothy Omenson, who's been on the cast, who had a stroke and couldn't do the first movie. And basically they were paying respects to him and making a movie centered around him because as he struggles to get back to the person he was pre-stroke, and they're actually addressing his difficulties in the film. And then the third movie is just full on about the characters. I mean, yes, there is a minor mystery where they're trying to find out about Gus's fiancée, Selene, who's going to be the mother of his child, and trying to find out, her real backstory, which we don't know, and we find out throughout the course of it. But really, it's about Sean struggling with the fact that his best friend is growing up and going to be a dad. And like Henry Spencer says in the movie, all friendships die with fatherhood. There's a truth to that because I've been there. I do understand what he's saying when he says that. And the whole movie is them coming to grips with still being best friends with the baby incoming, with their characters as they grow, but also keep getting into the most ridiculous circumstances you could possibly imagine. And then it leads to probably one of the most outrageous finales of all three movies. Like the last 20 minutes, I laughed and cried so hard. So hard. It's easily my favorite of the three. I don't know if that answered your question, but the friendship. The movies bring me back because of the friendship.
So this would be the most, you would say, like the TV show in a way, because like the first movie is trying to figure out like how do we become a movie.
Sure.
The second movie is strictly just this love letter to Timothy, and then this one would probably be the most resemblance of the TV show in long form time run.
I think it still feels like a movie. Like actually, this one probably feels the most like a movie. It doesn't have those. The second one had that weird fade to black. Where it'd almost be a commercial break would be, even though it's a movie. So why would you have that?
True.
You don't have that in the third movie. It just flows like a movie all the way through. There's a lot of character growth still with Carlton Lassiter's, Timothy Omenson's character, Henry Spencer, who's Sean's dad. He still has some growth. Like there's real character growth in the movie, which is surprising because it's like a really bonkers, wacky comedy for most of the movie, but there's real heart here. And it feels like a movie. It feels more like like the evolution of the series. Like this is where it should be if it's going to be a movie. First one felt like we're trying to make a movie. Second one felt like a love letter. This one feels like we found it. Like this is the formula.
How much fan service is in this? Do we see characters that we didn't need to see and they're just stuck in there, or do they fit where they need to fit? And does the pineapple show up?
I can't remember seeing the pineapple, which is a staple to the show if you ever watched it. You do definitely, not really too many characters show up, I don't think, but they are name checked. All of Gus's girlfriends are name checked at one point, and I thought that was pretty funny. Mostly it's really Sean and Gus and just realizing that fatherhood's going to change one of them, and because of that, it's going to change both of them.
And we should probably mention too that Maggie Lawson and Timothy Olmanson are doing the psychologists, because they're called psychos. The psychologists podcast. The psychologists are in. So if you want to go back and watch Psych and also have a fan podcast to listen to, it's actually pretty decent. So make sure you check that out as well.
Yeah.
So Psych on Peacock only, unfortunately. But if people have Peacock and have the ability to watch Psych, what would you give this out of 10?
I give it $8. Maybe 9. I had a absolutely riotous time. Maybe 10, 15 minutes while it's finding its footing. But man, once it gets going, and I'm serious, Troy, you love that show. The last 20 minutes, I thought I was going to die. And I don't want to spoil it, but it has a scene that I normally hate in everything. And they made it fun. And it's very hard to make that fun. And it made it hilarious. So
I'm super excited to see Gus's twin brother now.
Yeah. Oh, shut up. No, there's no twins. I promise. All right, we're finally at Ghostbusters Afterlife. We've been waiting to get to this discussion. It's going to be with spoilers because there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about. We don't want to have to dance around it. So if you haven't seen it or you're concerned about it, I would probably come back to this after the movie. But I will tell you, we both enjoyed it. I give it a $10 full price admission. I give it $6.50 because I have some issues with the plot, not so much the enjoyment. Okay. Now, what did you give it? Because I know you loved it more.
I gave it $7.50. I had problems with the pacing and a little bit of the front matter, but overall, I was clapping. I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and a lot of fun nostalgia throwbacks. And I think part of my issue isn't with the movie. Part of my issue is with the marketing prior to the movie.
All right, I look forward to hearing that. And no, there are no sexual dalliances with ghosts like the first movie. You know, Dan Aykroyd and his family.
Very family friendly in this one.
Very. Well, you think?
Well, sort of. There's one scene, but it's kind of assume that it's coming.
It's downplayed.
Very downplayed.
All right, so now we're jumping into it. So when a single mom and her 2 kids arrive in a small town because they're broke, they go back to her estranged father's old farmhouse, and they begin to discover that their connection to the original Ghostbusters is there, and the secret legacy their grandfather left behind. And the secret grandfather is... Turn off your podcast thing. Egon Spengler. What?
I think that was in the trailer.
Was it? I don't remember watching that trailer. Honestly, I try to skip trailers for stuff I know I'm going to see. So what did you think of the plot, the overall plot this go around? And in particular, well, here, you're already ready to speak. I'll say what you're going to say and then I'll bring up.
No, go ahead. Ask your question.
In particular, like, what about this concept of Egon having a kid, abandoning said kid for this endeavor, and, you know, how the plot is kind of a complete duplicate of the first movie otherwise?
Well, I think number one, abandoning your kid is a hard thing to say because...
Is it though?
In this case, what Egon was doing was trying to prevent the end of the world. So in a sense, yes. Was I obsessed with my work? Sure. But was he doing it for his kid? Was he doing it so that his kid would have... I mean, you could think about it, maybe it's like a little bit of a political commentary on climate change and whatnot. Like, are we doing anything to save the world for the betterment of our kids and our grandkids? And in this case, it's exactly what Egon was doing. He was so dedicated to his work to prevent the end of the world that he was making sure that there was a place for his daughter and his granddaughter and grandson to live and grow up. And I can respect that angle of it. You could call on a birthday every now and then, sure. But
I feel like there could have been more with that, yeah, where at least it wasn't a complete abandonment. Maybe we're estranged, you know, he left us and I just wanted nothing to do with him, so I cut it off with him. It just feels like he's very much portrayed like he completely abandoned his kid and really she had no idea why.
Right.
And yeah, that part I didn't think was good. I just thought that was poorly written.
Like you said, I think it should have been the other way, where she cut it off because he was too weird and
something like
doing
that.
Weird stuff.
Sure.
And, yeah. Because when you get down in spoiler, when she gets down into the basement and sees what was going on and how much he was keeping tabs on her. I mean, that was just such a tender moment. And like here, I've been trying to like connect with you this whole time, and I've been doing this all for you. And now that you get to realize this after I'm gone, I mean, that was a powerful moment down in the basement.
It was. It was just, I just felt like, you know what? It's a hard dynamic to kind of narrow down, because if you bring it up and then feel like, I just want to hate the movie. What are you talking about? No, it's a real story problem. Like the Egon we knew from those two movies, I could never ever see doing this without an explanation purely to his kid. He was all about explanations. I can't fathom a concept where he didn't explain his dynamic. So that's part of the struggle for that portion of it. You know what? It led to some great moments, like when his hand hovers over his granddaughter as she's holding the laser. Honestly, that's like just tears aplenty, right? I mean, that's just nothing but good feeling and just like, I get it. I get where they're coming. It's just it's a beautiful moment. But in the same token, I just wish the story with his real daughter had been a little stronger, so that we could have understood. The connection
is definitely between the granddaughter and her grandfather.
Yeah.
And then Carrie Coon's character is kind of put on the back burner from that. Like, how do I connect with my dad at the same time?
Yeah. So Callie, I think, was a little underserviced in terms of the story here. But the movie still works, but it is a detractor. Like, I was definitely thinking about it throughout the movie, because I'm like, wow, he's just like a deadbeat dad. He doesn't explain this at all to them. I mean, obviously he explained it to Venkman and to Dan Aykroyd, but apparently he doesn't do it to his kid. I don't understand that. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, when did he have this kid? Because I don't think he had a kid in the original, but apparently, caused him and Ray to have a fight, whatever. So the other portion with the plot was, it's basically the same plot. You got the dogs, you got, Gozer the Gozerian, it's all about Zool. I mean, did that bother you that it felt too reminiscent of the plot from the first movie? Or this is one of those things where you're like, it gave you enough for the new people, don't know what they're seeing, and you get a little feeling of the old?
I think that the challenge with this one was, at first I'm kind of like, oh, like it's the same movie. Like, I'm kind of bummed about that. And Paul Rudd's character and Carrie Coon's character are going to become the dogs, and they're going to get together, and like, it was just so telegraphed. But when you get to the point of going to the mountain and understanding why it's the same story, I think that's when it clicked and went, oh, this is actually kind of different and kind of cool. And that this is a recurring event that's been happening for centuries and centuries, and is going to keep happening unless we finally kill Gozer once and for all. And I think when you get that perspective of it, it makes you appreciate the story that much more, because it's not just a retelling. It's literally the same occurrence that's happening in a cycle, that this whole culture that worshiped Gozer way back in the early ancient days started to have as a, what do you want to call it? A cycle of repetition that happens just because they want her to come back, or it to come back, or whatever Gozer is. And I think that the thing that was probably the best part of this movie was getting that explanation, and then seeing how Egon's plan was specifically tied to this day, this event, this time, and how it was able to happen. And like using the 4 proton packs.
Oh, that's so smart. That was so cool.
At bay was so smart. And it was like, okay, so there's a lot of new here at the same time where there's a lot of old. And I think that was a really good balance.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I really love that whole, he's got that system rigged down in the basement where, bam. And then, of course, Paul Rudd's got to come ruin it all. It's really his fault.
And if anything, like, people's sexiest man, Paul Rudd in this movie.
The sexiest man alive, that's how we should identify him for at least a year, right? Sexiest man alive, exactly. Paul Rudd.
Like, even his character, I found, like, what I expected. Like, this is me coming with my expectations. Like, I expected him to be a little bit different. And he was kind of a little too nerdy, and I don't think he did as much as I thought he was going to do for being Paul Rudd.
Yeah, so I thought he would have a more prominent
disappointed
role.
In his performance a little bit in this one.
Not so much in his performance, though, more in how little he actually gets, right? He's basically Rick Moranis in this movie, right? With more involvement with the kids.
And even the involvement in the kids was small. Like, I was expecting him to be driving the ectomobile when they're doing all the shooting up around town, like being with the children a lot of the time. And instead, he's just trying to get in Carrie Coon's pants.
kind of funny when you say it like that. So what did you think of the cast? We talked Carrie Coons, you got Paul Rudd, you got McKenna Grace, you got Finn Wolfhard, you got a great cast. And I'm not talking about the OGs right now. I'm just talking about like the new cast.
Yeah. Finn Wolfhard, like he still is he's a great child-ish actor.
He's 47 years old, apparently, since the last time we saw him on Stranger Things.
Yeah, like I have no idea how Stranger Things 4 is going to work seeing this, because this was also filmed a long time ago. And Finn Wolfhard looks like a man.
Oh yeah.
It works because he has a younger sister. So for him to be older, 16, 18, driving the car, I think it works in this film. But yeah, he definitely is getting in the realm of like, you can't be a child actor anymore. Like you are a full-on adult. But his goofiness still works. Like I said, McKenna Grace, like Phoebe, she's so good. So good.
Really nailed that, where she's not doing an impression of Harold Ramis. She's doing a respectful homage. Like she's still making it her own. It's her own character, but with speckles of Harold Ramis. And I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, the dad joke she uses to try to make herself feel seen, and the relationship she has with her mom, I thought was really, really great. Everything she does. I mean, she is the movie.
She's the star.
Let's be honest.
For sure.
Like she is the movie.
Now, do you like that? Because I mean, it's Ghostbusters, and it's really she's the main one. But they do have, they have Trevor, who's Finn Wolfhard. They have Celeste O'Connor. She's Lucky. I think she's a fun addition. And you get Logan Kim plays Podcast, and of course we love it because it's podcast. I get it. What's my name? My name's Podcast. Why? Because I have a podcast. We get this. I can relate.
One listener.
Yeah. I guess that's your 4, right? That's your technical Ghostbusters, but Phoebe's really the one that drives it. Like she is the Ghostbusters. She's the Ghostbuster.
Well, and it makes sense because they only have the one proton pack that they find that they can use. They only have the one trap that they can use. So, if you're going to put it in the hands of somebody, at least put it in the hands of someone that actually knows how to use it. So it makes sense.
I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was really worried going into this with the kids being the focus. I'm like, how is that going to work? Because I want to see Ghostbusters. I want to see like a group of people, adults, doing Ghostbuster stuff. So that's where they did a really good job of fan service, that they gave me something I didn't know I wanted, because we could enjoy it through the eyes of kids, because kids are having a fantastic time. And if we were, it's just like the Goonies, right? Going on an adventure as a kid. Who doesn't love that?
And it was interesting is that I swore in the music at one point, I got different musical motifs of classic 80s movies. Like I swore I heard Goonies music at one time. I swore when they go to the mountain, to the mine, I heard Close Encounters music, just like bars, not like the whole song, like just like phrases of music that you're like, oh, this brings me back to a moment in my childhood, which I thought was really well done. And I think just even the visuals of that, right? You have the visuals of like a Goonies feel. You have the visuals of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You have visuals of the original Ghostbusters, because they use I think they use the exact same graphic or effect when the dog jumps out of the Walmart store and breaks the glass and hits the bench and then turns sideways. Like, I think it was like literally regurgitated and enhanced from the original effect, because it just reversed in the mirror image. The nostalgia factor was high, like super high. For sure.
Absolutely. Just like it was in overdrive. There's nostalgia everywhere. It was like that was coming out of the proton packs. In terms of the OGs, what did you think about having actually all 4 of them technically back, which is a great way to bring Harold Ramis into the mix as a ghost, because he can't speak, but they can also kind of bring him back digitally without having to overdo it, and to where it's, Princess Leia and Rogue One, where it just like takes you completely out of it. It really, really works here. What did you think about having the 4 back? The only issue I had was they show up at exactly the right time with proton packs, and nobody apparently sees them drive up to the farm, because there's a lot of road there. They've shown it multiple times. I'm like, you should have known they were even coming, but I guess you were distracted. Whatever.
They were distracted because Gozer was standing in the cornfield.
And by the way, did a great job bringing Gozer back, because it looked just like her, like I remembered her, which was pretty fun. I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah, a little more polished maybe, but
Sure.
Yeah, for the most part, looked very similar to the original actress from the 80s.
Super happy to have the dogs not be so distracting, because in the original movie, the special effects were so new, it's so distracting that obviously the dog's not there. Now it actually looks like a real special effect. So what did you think about the Ghostbusters coming back?
The whole movie, you're sitting there going like, how are they going to work these guys in? I know they're coming. I saw Jimmy Fallon. They're clearly in the movie. Like, how are they going to come back into the movie?
Right.
And so when they finally do show up in the movie, yeah, some people would call it cheesy. Some people would call it like it's exactly when they were supposed to come back. I think it was like the greatest hero moment that we've had in a long time. Like they just show up exactly when they needed to show up. And the reason why they come together to show up is because of this Phoebe reaching out to Dan Aykroyd and saying, hey, like I'm Egon's granddaughter and this stuff's happening and you need to get here. And so the fact that they show up is because, Dan Aykroyd's character obviously goes and talks to everybody and says, hey guys, like Egon was onto something. We got to get back. We got to get the gang back together. And it was great. Like the minute they show up, you're just like, yes, like stick it to Gozer. And then they cross the streams and then the whole, like, they're uncrossing the streams. And it's like, wait a minute, Gozer's that much stronger? Like, what's going on?
Are you a god? Yes. Ray. Yes.
Yes.
We are gods.
There's just, it was so great. Everything about it. And then there was this, and the moment where then Phoebe's standing there and then the ghost shows up for Egon and all four of them are in line. And as they're shooting the proton packs, like each one of them turns and looks towards Egon's ghost. Like, oh my gosh. Like not quite the Last Jedi Luke Skywalker moment at the end of the movie, but it was pretty damn close. Like I was in puddles.
Oh, and they have a beautiful, and if we haven't mentioned it, Jason Reitman directed this, and he's the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the first movie, in case you didn't know. It's a fun fact.
He directed it and written this one, too.
Yeah, and wrote it.
Jason did.
Yeah, Jason's a very accomplished director in his own respect. And his movies are very different from his dad's, which is kind of funny. But he has the shot where all four of them are lined up kind of in sequence. And even with Harold Ramis, I really loved that shot. I thought that was a really cool way to, they're all here. We got them all back in some form. That was even though I don't like the absentee dad thing, and I didn't love the fact that Ray Stantz and Egon had a falling out and whatnot, and kind of there's all this animosity and for incorrect reasons and whatnot. I didn't necessarily love that. I love how they brought it back together and they made it work. Like they rectified it by the end, and they had this, like you said, a hero moment, and where you get to feel like, oh. Now, I don't know how it plays for somebody that's never seen Ghostbusters before, like a kid in the audience or something, but they seemed pretty excited when I was in the theater. Like, it seems like they know who they are, even if they've never seen the movie.
Right.
So, I mean, it was just a beautiful moment. I think they really captured that magic.
And the best part about it is, like, when all four of them are on screen standing there in that last shot, the one thing that came into my mind was, Do, Ray, Egon. It's like, I'm glad they didn't put it in the movie because it would have been really super cheesy, but I thought of it. I literally thought of it. I smiled and I was like, this is what movies are all about, is this moment right here. It was so, like, I'm crying thinking about it right now. It was so good.
Yeah. And there's I can't remember. It was like Ray Stantz barbling out something like goes with the Gazarian. In the name of the County of Somerville, State of Oklahoma, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, all the members of Ducks Unlimited, the Association for the Advancement of Retired Persons, I command you under the National Invasive Species Act to depart this world immediately. That was just like, only Dan Aykroyd could memorize that and deliver it so well.
Well, yeah.
So well.
So now here's the challenge, though. The challenge was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Babies.
Yeah.
I love them to death. And here's another 80s throwback, right? The Stay Puft Marshmallow Babies were literally the Gremlins.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
They're like running around the grocery store. They're going in the blender. It's a fantastic sequence. I laughed my ass off. It was so great. But here's where the marketing fails the movie. And it's because in the grocery store, and Paul Rudd is going up to the refrigerator doors to get like a drink or ice cream or whatever it was.
Right.
And I'm like, the dog's going to be in the freezer. right? Just like it was in Dana's freezer. Like the dog's going to be in the freezer. And so the trailer gave away the Stay Puft Marshmallow Babies. And I think that was that was a bummer because like the whole time you're thinking dog in the freezer, dog in the freezer, dog in the freezer. And then when he finally comes to the aisle and sees the Stay Puft Marshmallow Baby, it's something different to throw you off the scent that the dog is still in the store. So you're like, you knew the answer. You just didn't know how the dog was going to show up. And then it would have been enough of a distraction that when the dog does show up, you're kind of like, oh shit, the dog is here.
That's too bad. I honestly didn't see the trailer. Like I said, I really avoided it whenever I could.
Yeah. Like if they could have avoided showing that, I think that would have been a great moment because then when the first little baby pops up, it's just like, oh my God, it's so cute. And then they all start coming out of the woodwork.
And they're torturing each other. I mean, it's just a great bit. It's really a great bit.
It's great. So that's the only downfall I have of the movie is that I knew that was coming. So therefore it kind of like wasn't as like, oh my God, that's amazing.
It's no surprise. It's no surprise. It's completely ruined for you. Yeah. I had a great moment. I did not know it was coming. I'm like, that is hilarious. That is.
See?
And then they start torturing each other and they're throwing each other in blenders and on the grill and everything else. And I'm just like, it's funny because we can have really violent little side stops like you would in Gremlins. And it's okay because they're, it's CGI. It's fine.
Right. But apparently, Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner is completely ruining our children's lives or something. I have no idea.
It's making them better.
The one thing that I really did like about this movie that Jason really did well is like the things that happen earlier in the movie, setting up things that happen later in the movie. Specifically, I literally clapped and said yes out loud in the movie theater. So when they are by the buses and they release, what was it? Chomper,
Muncher,
the steel ghost,
Muncher. I think it was Muncher.
Yeah. When they release him and all the windows blow out and the front of the car window that they're driving is missing and they're showing him drive up to the house and he's like leaning forward out the window with his wind in his face. And then when Paul Rudd is running away from the dog from the Walmart and then he like jumps on the hood of the car and slides through the front windshield because there's no glass there. I was like, okay, that was planned. That was brilliant. And like, thank you. That moment for some reason, I was like, that's badass. Because it just shows thought. Like you thought about it ahead of time.
Yeah, no, it was very well thought out, well constructed.
I mean, it's not Back to the Future, right? It's not the perfect movie. Back to the Future is like a perfect movie. But I have to say, like, this was like, it was close. I mean, everything I wanted and more. The problem was just like the first maybe half hour is a little bit like, do something, It's fun. It's fun to look at maps and it's fun to look at papers and it's fun to go look in the basement and it's fun to look at the wall. But it's like, okay, now do something. There's got to be some action here in that first 30 minutes before I'm going to like lose focus.
So you feel like there wasn't enough Ghostbusting in the early going because the pacing did struggle a little bit the first 45 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, the front half of the movie is a little bit drug out.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you have to establish like who the kids are, and the kids have to adapt to a new town, and you have to do some of that storytelling, which is fine. They do a pretty good job of that, but it was a little bit too much, right? And not enough. Like they could have done a lot more. Just instead of like trying to make this like love relationship with the local townie girl and her dad, the police chief, they could have just spent more time like exploring the house, right? I think that would have been like a lock and key kind of situation. I think would have been kind of interesting. Like what else is in this creepy old place between the barn and the basement and the house and the maps and the, do it more Goonie style than the way they did it.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that.
A lot of time driving back and forth between the mine and the town.
Some cool moments there. You can tell because I know the budget was a lot less than the last Ghostbusters movie, probably because, that one wasn't as successful as they hoped. So this one was like $75 million, which isn't a lot by mega blockbuster standards.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell it's like it was a product of either less money or COVID or something because...
It was filmed before COVID, so it wasn't COVID.
Yeah. A lot of the same scenes, though, and backgrounds were used repetitively, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a budget thing, I think. They had to save the special effects for the finales. So the Stingers, Vinkman and Dana Barrett playing Peter's psychic game and him getting zapped a lot. That's the first Stinger. Did you like that little mid-credits?
I did because the whole time I'm like, where's Dana? I'm like, there is no Dana.
There's only Zool.
I'm like I know Dana's in this. They said that she was in it. Like, where is she? And then so when she shows up mid-credit, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun.
I mean, it kind of makes sense she wouldn't be there, right? I can't
the main
imagine
story. Yeah, there's no
think of the
point-
PTSD she must have. She don't want to go back there.
Yeah. There's no point for her to be in the movie itself. But it was cool to see like, oh, hey, they are still married and they're still together. So
Yeah, that was fun. And then the end, in case you didn't stay after the credits, a lot of people don't. Sorry. Winston Zeddemore owns the firehouse, not that Tribeca actor who would be Robert De Niro, I would guess. And the ghost containment light is blinking red, which is curiously what happened in the first movie when Walter Peck turned off the system and things went south. So what did you think about this? Is obviously a setup for a potential additional film in the franchise, or letting you fan fiction
Hope for one.
The future.
Yep. I'll tell you this. Winston surprised me. The post-credit sequence, just even when he was talking, like when the four of them were standing there, like Winston felt like the heart of the movie that was maybe not the heart of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, man, like the nostalgia trip that he goes down when he's talking to Janine, and the whole coin thing that you get the coin thing from I think that was the end of the second movie, where the coin thing comes up, and it just, yeah, all of Winston's stuff just was like, it was great. Like his love for the car, and he's like, I'm going to bring you home, and they come back to the firehouse, and like it makes me interested to see like what would a second movie be if like Winston was the focus, you know, and do the kids come back into play?
True. Would you want that? Let's ask that. Like, what would you want to see in another movie? I'm assuming you want another one because you enjoyed this one, but do you want the kids to come back? Do you want it to be in New York with Zeddemore and the original, the OGs, or how would you want that to work? Do you have any concepts?
Yeah, I'm still just basking in the fun that this was, but I know that there's something there. Like Winston's love of the fact that he still owns the firehouse and that the Ecto-1 is back in the firehouse in New York with the containment like blinking tells me like something about Winston needs to happen in the next movie, whatever that would be.
Well, you're assuming there's going to be a next movie. I mean, it still has
I'm
to
hoping
make enough money.
I'm hoping there's a next one.
Still going to make a lot of money.
We didn't get to see Slimer. We only got to see Muncher.
I don't want to see Slimer. He's had his time. You know, let's. I like that they evolved the ghost, so at least it's a little different. And I like how he chews through the kids used him to chew through the bars when podcasts,
which is brilliant.
It was great.
You introduce the fact that he eats metal, and then in order for it to actually happen the way it needs to happen, like it was so well done by Jason. So well done. Yeah,
that was really, really smart. I thought very, very smart. I want to see the kids back. I really. Seriously, I think McKenna Grace basically should be the face of the franchise going forward.
Agree.
You know, she just made it fun. Now, I think you can have them, but I think they are supporting characters. They're more like guidance for whatever their journey is. Like maybe they call on the kids to help out in New York or something. That could be fun. I'm actually okay staying away from New York because I feel like we had Ghostbusters 1, we had 2, we had the reboot. I mean, I'm New Yorked out. Let's go somewhere else.
Yeah, the new setting I thought was what really made the new movie really great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Just in a different place. The mountaintop was still it was the Enterprise, the giant building in New York, same kind of concept, high peak or whatever. But like the concept of the mine, how the people were throwing themselves and killing themselves in the mine because they were probably being possessed or driven to some dark force that was bubbling up from the mine. I love that whole backstory. I thought that was really cool. So all in all, I had a great time with this. It was a lot of nostalgia, sure. A lot of fan service, sure. Had real issue with what they did to Egon. Still kind of mad about it. I don't know if that's ever going to get away. Every time I watch this, I'm going to be thinking about the relationship with his kids. Yes. Yeah. And it really could have been tweaked. I think you tweak it just a little bit, like we were talking about. Make it her decision. I think you're nuts. I don't want to have a relationship with you anymore. You know, my dad was just too much of a loon. We can't be around him because of all the conspiracy theories. I think that's an easy sell. It is. And it's much easier to us than he completely abandoned her and he should have never really knew why. I just think that's not Egon Spengler. And it would have worked with Ray as well. Like, hey, we already beat Gozer. What the hell are you talking about? Like, stop with this conspiracy theory. You're just looking for stuff. Yeah, they kind of made Ray look bad too. I didn't like that either. I just completely cast off my friend and he's dead to me. He can burn in hell or whatever he says. And I'm like, I mean, I get that he stole all your stuff, but as nutty and conspiracy theory laden as you are, it's kind of surprising to me that Ray wouldn't buy into it. Right. Like Ray's the number one person that would have been like, Egon, I'm coming with you. Yeah, I'll be right there. Let's figure this out. So you have to have some kind of way that Ray would be the one that's like, you're crazy, like stop talking.
Exactly.
Versus Egon just like ripping everybody off and stealing all the stuff.
But still, the one thing I will say is everyone I know that has seen this movie has loved this movie or had a very good time with it. So if you're debating, if you listen to all this and you're still debating, you haven't seen it yet, I think Ghostbusters Afterlife is worth a watch.
And if you listen to all of this, then I'm sorry that we told you the whole movie.
Yeah, but it's still worth seeing. Just for the moment where Phoebe's using that proton pack and the hand comes in. The hand comes in and holds the thing and Grandpa. It's just so sweet.
So good.
But I also miss my grandpa. So I'm like, I wish my grandpa would help me hold my proton pack.
I think that's the best thing about this movie is that you can connect with certain things in certain ways.
Sure.
Like you said, like your grandfather was more of a dad to you than your dad.
Mm-hmm.
So that moment probably hit for you where like when Carrie Coon goes in the basement and sees how much her dad cared for her because my dad passed away, I was like, that moment hit for me. I think there's just a lot there it'll pull on the strings a little bit.
And I love the absolute respect they had for Harold Ramis, the actor himself, by giving him his moment, even though he passed away. And it wasn't just some token statue in the side or something, or a picture in the background. He's a full-fledged character in the movie.
In the entire movie, not just at the end.
Yeah, in the entire movie. Yeah, and I do love that he floats away at the end. I mean, my job here is complete. I got to make amends with everyone that mattered to me, and now I can go off. That's the only reason I forgive the whole plot choices, is because at least he made amends with everyone.
Right.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's it for our show. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed all the discussion we had. Thanks, Troy, as always, for being here for this.
For sure. Glad to be here, and happy non-turkey day without your family.
Yeah. And if you listen to this after the holidays or you don't celebrate the holidays for any reason, just happy whatever day. Yeah. Remember, the next time you head to a theater to see Ghostbusters Afterlife, because bustin' makes you feel good, buy popcorn. Oh, and I'm also really glad they didn't redo the Ghostbusters song yet again.
Yes, they used the original, which was nice.
Yeah. And you were talking about score. I didn't even mention this earlier. They totally used the same score from the first movie for half this movie. Like,
okay,
it's literally like the exact same score.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's the same bad guy. It's the same villains. So why not use the same music?
Jesus. You're all for fan service. You fan whore. All right. Take care, everybody.